secret documents lift lid on alleged criminal mastermind behind illegal migrant crisis. This could be nonsense. This could be a fall guy. But let's see what it says. Secret documents from Libya have been shared with express.co.uk, lifting the lid on the criminal operation behind the migrant crisis and small boats. Chat, press 1 if it's going to be a Frenchman. Personally, I blame the French. One of the suspected criminal masterminds behind the human-trafficking gangs responsible for Britain's small boats crisis has been revealed, according to the Express. Express.co.uk has been passed documents by highly placed sources in Libya about the alleged operations of Ammar al-Mabrouk Saad Balkur, sounds very French to me, who is accused of being responsible for the trafficking of thousands of people into Europe, among other serious criminal activities. Yeah, I expect this is not the top level of the conspiracy. This is just a functionary, a regional manager, as it were. But still, interesting anyway. The Germans sound pretty shit. Yeah, he sounds kind of like half French, half German. What do you think, chap? The documents have given a rare insight into the human trafficking gang's operations, which begin in North Africa with illegal migrants taken to Italy before many of them work their way through the continent to come to the UK on small boats across the Channel. If we have to put naval vessels in the Mediterranean and just bomb these people, so be it. Obviously, I'd prefer that we can solve it peacefully, but I would prefer that we solve it if we can just block them rather than bombing them. I again prefer that, but if it ultimately gets to that point, similar to the US, they are an invading force in effect. And by the intention of people in our own country as well, by the evil intention of some, they are an invading force just without military equipment. In most cases, I expect in some they do. A small boat with a 50 cal, that is all you would need, yeah. That is pretty much all you would need, just, yeah. People with the intention to fire, even just near the migrants. The thing is, like, I am averse to using death as a tool for political change. I'm not against it at the end of need, but have we even tried the points up to the point of killing them? Have we tried just shooting the boats? Like, shoot the boat so they have to return to shore. Shoot the boat near enough to the shore they've left so that they can swim back. I don't know, just try anything before you just start shooting them. But again, they are an invading force. Ultimately, we kind of have the right to. Yeah, that's where it says. There's no need to kill them, just stop saving them. Like, it's not going to look good to the public if it's like, British Royal Navy lets migrants drown in the Channel. Like, I would find it difficult to care a lot about that, and I know a lot of you wouldn't care either, but still, it's easy to present that as bad. Force them to go back. Yeah, like, if you just sink the boats when they're near France. I don't know why we can't do that. I guess having having our boats near France, they get pissed off. But maybe if the Yellow Vest protests continue in France, there won't be a France anymore. And during their revolution, we can just move our boats right up to their borders and start shooting the inflatable dinghies as they come across. It's floating spike strips. I don't know if that's a real thing, Oda, but if it is, sure. Oh yeah, I mean, Jack, it would be massive overkill to send battleships in. But we could do. Every law is backed up with deadly force. Yes, ultimately it is. That is one thing that Heinlein is correct about. Oda says, consult Greg Abbott for ways to circumvent your central government's lack of immigration control. Yeah, we don't really, like, the UK is, in terms of the structure of nations, the equivalent of a US state. The EU is more equivalent to the US in terms of, not obviously in terms of policy, but in terms of the structure of nations and supranational entities. So the UK as a state has left the EU, and so we can do what Greg Abbott did. We don't have to disobey on the level of just a small area disobeying the entire group. However, if the nation, like Texas is doing it, New Mexico and Arizona, which are both also border states, aren't. And the UK isn't either. I would like to see us do as Texas did, but we can do all that on the national level. It would be good to see. We wouldn't need to disobey anyone to do it. However, if certain counties were to do it, which don't have the same level of devolved power as states do in the US because it's not the same scale, counties in the UK might, I'm not sure, they might have more power than counties in the US do. I'm not sure about that. But individual counties doing it, I'm not sure if that's possible, but possibly. It's better than nothing. Zane says, what about the migrants that block the roads and hijack trucks going to French ports bound for the UK? Yeah, that happens too. And the French, there's evidence the French have just permitted that to happen as well. As the UK coastline considers seceding. There's often been calls from Cornwall to secede, but it's already got very far. How about a bit of shooting the French? I mean, I'd be okay with it. States in the US share language, culture, and a narrative about our origin and destiny. What do France and Finland have? Exactly, yeah. So I'm saying structurally, in terms of like county, nation or state, and then supranational entity, or sometimes also nation. In terms of that structure, the UK is more equivalent to US state, and the US is more equivalent to the EU. But obviously, there's many, many differences, which is why I advocate for the US to exist, but not the EU. From the Kingdom of Cornwall. Yeah, I don't know. Realistically, Gotham is a combo of New York, Jersey, and Chicago. Yeah, indeed. According to sources, Balcour was assassinated last week after attention fell on him and he could be apprehended by Libyan or foreign security forces. Interesting. One source told the Express, the official story is that he was killed by his nephew. The real one is he was killed by Libyan security before he could talk. Interesting. Here's a picture of him. But the alleged criminal mastermind who was said to be responsible for around 600 of the 1,000 illegal migrants trafficked each week through Libya into Europe, his organization was also linked to murders relating to harvesting human organs for sale, among other activities. So not a nice guy, basically. Not a nice guy at all. The same documents were passed to former Cabinet Minister David Jones of the Locker, chairman of the all-party parliamentary group on Libya, who has sent them to Security Minister Tom Tugendhat to be urgently investigated. Mr. Jones told Expresso UK, I have been forwarded these documents about the suspected organizer of human trafficking and other illegal activities in Libya. They are obviously very concerning, and I have sent them to the relevant ministers and asked them to investigate. Clearly, if we are to stop the small boats, then we need to tackle the organized criminal gangs responsible for human trafficking as a matter of urgency. Actually, you don't. You just need to stop them at our borders. Like, that's a good start. If you want to then solve the problem in general, go for it. But the problem is, anyone can do this if they have a boat and they happen to be in France. They can just get in the boat and row it here, and you can't stop them coming in. Well, you can, if you make the policy such that you can. Because every nation should defend their borders from random interlopers. And any degree of, yes, but we should have an... what's the word? Asylum policy. We should, but it should not apply to massive numbers of obvious economic migrants. If you've got some oppressed, abdicating French princess who has information about the horrors that are really going on, a conspiracy in the halls of power in the French government, and they're the country next door, or even Germany or Belgium or Denmark or some nearby country, that's what asylum's meant to be for, I thought. Not for massive numbers of people. So no, at that point, don't even let them in to process the inquiry. Just say, no, we can process it while you're in France if you like, but it might take years, and you are behind the queue for legal immigrants. Now, I don't have a good way of saying categorically, you are acceptable for asylum and you are not, but I know for sure that the examples we have today should not be. So don't let that be the case. And that's just part of the problem as well. Immigration numbers, legal immigration numbers, or total immigration numbers in the UK should be cut to 0 immediately. And then we should start sending out people, beginning with those that are criminal. Anyone who's immigrated or whose family immigrated in the last 50 years or more, who is criminal, needs to be gone no matter what. Find somewhere for them. Send them to the uninhabited areas of Iceland for all like... Actually, not Iceland. Iceland is one of the only places in the world that's still clear of this cancer, but send them anywhere. Just like go to somewhere in Africa and just put them back where the slaves were bought from in the first place, where no one will notice that you've put them there. I don't know. We can find something, somewhere to send them. And like... Even if we have to pay that country, as long as it's not an exorbitant amount, fine, just get rid of them. As I said, especially starting with the criminals, but even beyond that. And then any area of the... Like, there's all these things that we can say to do, and it's all the right things, obviously, but it's just getting people with the will to do it. But the areas that have become essentially foreign-run areas, foreign cultural-run areas, especially Muslim areas, that needs to be just completely broken up. I don't know how you even do it. I know that there are ways to force integration of those kinds of people. I'm not sure if we want that, but at the very least, you've got to break that shit up. You've got to have just constant patrols of armed police in groups in those areas. Exactly, with big sticks. And if you see anything like that, no hesitation. Not only do you apprehend them, but you deport them immediately as well. You apply at the embassy consulate only, all others get chucked back into whatever safe nation they cross to violate. That's a good point, actually, Field. Yeah. If you have like the thing is, if it's a barbaric nation, they may not have an embassy or consulate, and even if it is a non-barbaric nation, if the case is severe enough, they may just invade the embassy, which would be very bad. But would it lead directly to war or to massive sanctions? Not certainly. So I can see, like, well, I couldn't get to the embassy or consulate, but I could get to the border. Well, okay, fine, maybe we'll look into your thing. But yeah, I agree, Field. Most of the time it should go through the embassy or consulate. I agree. But that's not necessarily always good enough. And again, we're talking about really rare exceptions here. I'm not trying to carve out an exception that would apply to the economic migrants even, because there shouldn't be one. I mean, frankly, I would go as far as saying anyone that has a culture that is not compatible with the UK should be up for being sent away. Any immigrant who has not clearly immigrated with some simple to write up test that you could establish needs to go, and etc. All kinds of stuff that you could do with that. There's a lot of people to get rid of. One-way trip to the moon. Yeah, Decra, we're talking in that case about the ideal asylum cases, like oppressed political figures or something. The reason asylum exists in the first place, not the people who are chancing it and the destination of a chat. I mean, there's land masses in the world that either don't really have governments or don't really have people on them. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, Wes. What I was talking about there would be a policy for the short term. Similarly to how in the US, there are many in Cabal, and maybe yourself and maybe me as well, who would argue much harsher policies for dealing with Mexicans or anyone trying to cross the border. Much harsher policies. But then after that, once the situation has resolved, settling down to just sensible policies. Yes, I agree, Wes. I agree. You would want to make it temporary. I mean, like, I'm not saying government making policies temporary doesn't make sense. I'm talking about what could you do if you had ideal control, if you had control and you could trust your own motives. I would not necessarily be happy with any modern day politician implementing that because it gives them way too much power. Yes, I agree. But yeah, like it's certainly not impossible to solve the problems in our countries. We just need the will to do it and the people in power, which is the same thing. Ginger says, my ideal immigration policy would be as follows. There is no limit as many people as you like. No commies, no moosies, no penises. Yeah, that probably would be very effective. You would get the occasional woman who would enter the country and still send money back home, of course. But yeah, the problem with immigration, as Ginger points out, one of the problems is there's so many of them are men and not families that it is just racial warfare. That part of it is racial, that you can quite easily argue. I mean, there are other reasons you could say that as well. But I think it is at least in part racial that's being done. Because whilst men, in a 9-month span, men can cause the eventual birth of any number of women, essentially. In that same span, a woman can cause the birth of one person. So men in an area means that more of that genetic material will be spreading. Women in an area means that more of the genetic material of the men in the area will be spreading. And of course, you've also seen all the interracial ads. So yes, I believe that some part of the conspiracy here is racial against whites specifically. That's not the entire story, though.